This presentation is to go over the concept of skin hunger, which is currently part of the circles of sexuality under the circle of sensuality. Skin hunger, as defined, is basically the longing and desire to be touched, according to Dennis Daly. It has a lot to do with the experience of how people enjoy or tolerate or loathe the experience of touching. Some people like more touch than others, and that's what this presentation is going to talk about. I like to use the metaphor of the pickle jar as discussed in the first video. If you were to consider touch as a liquid, how do you think how much liquid or touch would it take to fill up a pickle jar? Probably not very much. Some people, in effect, are pickle jars. They like a little bit of touch. It fills them up real quick, maybe a quick handshake, maybe even a touch on the shoulder, or maybe for big old pickle jars, a hug. And then they're good. They're done. They don't need anything more or want anything more. Pickle jars, subsequently, don't often long for too much touch. There are the pickle tubs. That is a large barrel that usually can have a lot of liquid and or pickles in them. And if we think again about touch as water, it would take a lot more to fill up a pickle tub than it would a pickle jar. Some people can in fact be pickle tubs. They love a whole lot of touch. They like to be snuggled and hugged and massaged and cuddling and just like to have a lot of touch all the time. So in that experience. So where does it come from? How does it develop? Well, the reality of it is that we aren't sure. The skin is actually the largest organ in the human body. And has lots and lots of nerve receptors and sensitivities. So we know, of course, from attachment theory that attachment theory can help us understand a little bit more. Attachment theory, of course, has to do with the nature of connection and relationships to objects or other primary caregivers. And of course, as we build relationships with other people as adults, that those objects can be transferred from caregivers to spouses, partners, friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, etc., etc. We know that, according to Mary Ainsworth's work on attachment, that avoidant attachment may in fact reflect pickle tubs, people who often want a whole lot of touch to fill them up. They feel like they need that in order to feel more secure, to feel loved, to feel cared for. Whereas anxiously attached people might actually reflect a pickle jar. That is, they don't need a whole lot. They are like too much touch is kind of invading their space and causing anxiety and things of that nature. So what do you think someone would be if they were a securely touched individual? Would they be a pickle tub? Would they be a pickle jar? Is there someone in between? Please note that it's important to not pathologize either pickled tubs or pickled jars. People are who they are, and sometimes those things can change a bit, but often some people are touchy-feely and some people aren't. Sometimes that comes from the family in which they were raised, the culture in which they were raised, the messages they got about bodies and touch when it was appropriate, when it was inappropriate. Was it on a daily basis or only in certain events, greetings, partings, holidays, funerals, etc., etc.? In fact, what we know is that touch can in fact shape emotional balance, psychological well-being, and the capacity to lead a normal and healthy life. All of that is very true. It is significant and leads us as social workers to question the role that touch, whether or not touch can in fact be healing in practice. We of course know that it can, but it also has a number of other confounding factors that can be presented when trying to navigate the realities of touch in practice. Being concerned about things like being accused of inappropriate behavior. We live in a litigious society. Be concerned with legal risks involved in touch. Oftentimes a person's gender can put someone at risk in terms of being accused of something inappropriate or not. But either way, touch is a significant factor and important to grasp. Here's the thing. Oftentimes, pickle jars and pickle tubs end up together. And so it can create what it is that we know as a distancer-pursuer dynamic. Please forgive the heterosexist model here, but I did want to show this particular dynamic as it relates to someone in relationships. Someone who we're talking to this person here, we'll just say might be someone who's much more of a distancer, so that we could reflect on someone who might be considered a pickle jar, whereas someone who is a strong pursuer might actually be a pickle tub. The pursuer or the pickle tub really wants to be hugged and cuddled by the pickle jar, and the pickle jar doesn't want to be hugged and cuddled, and so then it distances themselves. We see, though, that note that being a pickle jar doesn't mean they're unfeeling, but it does in fact reflect the idea of feeling too overwhelmed, kind of wanting to have some distance in that sense. But being a pickle tub doesn't mean you're needy. That is like wanting to someone see you say, like he doesn't care, feeling abandoned, when in fact what's happening is that a distancer or a pickle jar is just too stressed and getting a lot of stuff happening right now. So it really begs the question, what are the implications for relationships? What are the implications for how people can get their needs met? I would strongly encourage you to consider these when thinking about the work you're doing in practice with individuals, families, and couples especially. What are the implications of skin hunger for kids? For older adults, for adolescents. Touch is a really big deal in terms of being able to heal. For children, obviously, we know that it can help with attachment. But we also have to take care for folks who are on the autism spectrum, for instance, and the role that touch actually might be upsetting or off-putting. What about adolescents? Young girls who end up getting a lot of touch from dad, for example, all of a sudden they hit 13 or they start developing after puberty, they hit their early teens, and suddenly dad doesn't touch them at all, and they feel rejected or hurt. What's that about? And of course, for older adults, we know that older adults experience a great degree of lack of touch, and often the only time they actually do get touched is when they go in for a medical appointment with a physician. And so that is something that's important to care for. The idea here is that paying attention to touch is something really considerate and important. Thanks a lot.